Real wages in America just fell for the third month in a row. That means the paycheck sitting in your bank account right now buys less than it did last year, even though the number on it went up. Prices are climbing faster than raises, and gas alone just crossed $4.55 a gallon nationally. Stay with me, because most people are reading this crisis wrong, and the real numbers point to a very different move than panic. No opinions, no spin, just the data, starting now. Consumer confidence in America just hit its lowest point in 74 years of tracking. 3 of the 4 worst readings ever recorded have happened in the last 9 months alone. A recent survey found that 6 in 10 employed Americans say their income has not kept up with their expenses. About 1 in 3 say they expect their finances to get worse over the next year, and inflation is the reason they give most. If that is you, you're not imagining it, and you are not bad with money. The math itself has been working against you, and today we are going to show you exactly how. Here is the number everyone keeps missing: the difference between a nominal raise and a real raise. A nominal raise is the dollar figure on your paycheck, the number that feels good for about 5 minutes. A real raise is what that money can actually buy after prices are factored in, and that is the number that determines your life. As of May 2026, average hourly pay in America rose 3.4% over the past year. In that same period, consumer prices rose 4.2%. Subtract one from the other, and real wages fell 0.8%, meaning the average worker is quietly losing ground. This is not a one-month blip. Wage growth has now trailed inflation every single month since April of this year. The average weekly paycheck in America is now about $1,287, up $46 from a year ago. That sounds like progress until you realize prices rose faster than that $46 did. So, in real terms, the average worker is down about $6 a week. $6 might sound small, but multiply it across 52 weeks and across every household in the country, and you start to see the size of the squeeze. Economists have started calling this a split-screen economy. One screen showing record highs, the other showing paychecks quietly shrinking. Unemployment sits at 4.3%, and inflation sits at 4.2%. A gap so thin it almost never happens outside of periods of real financial stress. A low unemployment rate is usually a comfort, but when prices are rising at nearly the same pace, having a job stops feeling like enough. Here is the part almost nobody explains clearly. This squeeze is not landing evenly across the country. Real wage growth over the past year was actually positive in 34 states and in Washington, D.C. Virginia posted the strongest real wage growth in the nation at 4.7%, meaning workers there are genuinely getting ahead. But in a large share of other states, workers are losing ground in real terms, sometimes significantly. Where you live is quietly becoming one of the biggest factors in whether your paycheck is winning or losing this year. It is not just geography either. Industry matters just as much. Since 2020, healthcare, technology, and finance workers have generally outpaced inflation by a wide margin. Retail, food service, and education workers have often fallen behind, sometimes for years at a time. Zoom out to the bigger picture and nominal wages rose about 22% since 2020, while cumulative inflation rose about 18.9%. On paper, that looks like a real win of about 3% over 4 years. But that average hides 2 brutal years, 2021 and 2022, where real wages fell hard before slowly clawing back. So the honest answer to are wages beating inflation is it depends entirely on your state, your industry, and which years you are measuring. There is no single national answer. There is only your answer. And most people have never actually calculated it for themselves. This next part explains why the pain does not disappear the moment inflation numbers improve. Prices rarely reverse once they rise. They usually just stop climbing as fast. And that is a very different thing. A rent increase does not undo itself when inflation cools. It just becomes the new normal you have to live with. Childcare costs do not fall back down either. They simply stop rising as quickly. Milk prices are a perfect example. They dropped slightly from $4.20 a gallon in early 2023, only to climb right back to around $4 by last year. This is called the ratchet effect. Prices click upward and rarely click back down, even when the headline inflation rate improves. That means every price shock leaves a permanent mark on your cost of living, even after the news stops talking about it. This is exactly why the Federal Reserve Chair has said publicly that wages need to outpace inflation for several consecutive years before households actually feel like they are getting ahead. One good month of data does not undo years of accumulated cost increases sitting underneath your budget. So if you feel like you're still behind, even when the headlines say things are improving, that feeling is backed by real math, not pessimism. Historically, since data collection began in 2006, wages have actually outpaced inflation about 72% of the time, which means the odds are usually in your favor over the long run, just not in every single stretch, and definitely not in this one, right now. So back to the real question. Will your wages ever beat inflation? And the honest answer is, it depends on what you do next, not on what the economy does. Waiting for national inflation to fix your personal finances is the slowest and least reliable strategy available to you. The workers actually winning this squeeze are not the ones waiting for a better economy. They are the ones actively repositioning. Step 1. Calculate your own real raise instead of trusting the headline number on your paycheck. Take your raise percentage, subtract your local inflation rate, and that difference is your actual financial progress this year. If that number is negative, you did not get a raise. You got a pay cut wearing a disguise. Step 2. Treat your industry and your location as data points, not fixed facts. If your sector is structurally behind, like retail or food service, the fastest real wage growth usually comes from skill transfer, not from waiting for your current employer to catch up. Step 3. Negotiate using real numbers, not vibes. Walk into your next review with your real wage calculation, not just a request for more money, because specifics change conversations. Step 4. Protect the money you already have from the ratchet effect. Fixed costs like rent and insurance rarely go back down, so locking in favorable terms early, when you can, matters more than chasing yield later. Step 5. Watch the unemployment and inflation gap we mentioned earlier, because history shows that when that gap collapses toward zero, financial markets often become more volatile shortly after. That does not mean panic. It means this is a good moment to review your emergency fund and your debt load, rather than take on new financial risk. None of this requires predicting the economy perfectly. It just requires knowing your own numbers better than the headlines do. The people who come out ahead in a squeeze like this are rarely the ones with the highest income. They are the ones who understood their real numbers first. That is the entire difference between feeling stuck and actually moving forward. So will your wages ever beat inflation in your state, in your industry? With your plan, the odds can absolutely be in your favor. Nationally right now, the average worker is losing a little ground, but average has never been the number that determines your life. Your number does. If you are the kind of person who wants the real numbers before you make a move, not the headlines, not the vibes, this channel is built for exactly that. Subscribe to the Wealth Metrics, because real numbers, no noise, is not just our tagline, it is how you actually get ahead of a squeeze like this one.